In this episode, I want to show a game when we cut waves. Playing Axe and Darkseer, I think, are the two most common heroes to cut the wave. And what I mean by that is that you go behind the tower, and every wave that comes out of their base, you kill, like either outside their tier 2 tower, either just like beneath their tier 1 tower, or maybe sometimes even outside their base. You used to be able to do this a lot easier, but now they've changed the game so that before 5 minutes, the creep wave can only aggro towards you in this area. If you stand over here, the creep are going to ignore you, but if you stand over here, the creep will attack you. So it's very important to know that you can't really cut or pull waves anywhere like beyond this fog of war line. After 5 minutes, however, this changes, so it's a good time to maybe start cutting waves at 5 minutes, especially if you're maybe a little bit weaker than the enemy. It can be hard to fight them over here, but it's a lot easier to be alone with the creeps, like in this position. I'll show you my items that when you're cutting, obviously you're going to tank a lot of creeps, because especially as Axe, you're going to be killing them with your spin. Maybe as Darkseer, it's more important to buy a little bit more mana items. As like Bristleback as well, you need to always have mana because you're killing them with your spells. But in this scenario, I'm just killing them with my HP pool. So I make sure that I buy a lot of regen, I buy like stats, I buy ring and protection. I know that like these are the items I need to be able to tank the wave. Another thing to think about as well is your supports matchup. If you have a lot weaker support than the enemy, or if you have a lot weaker of a lane, it's really good to cut because you're basically farming even. Like I'm farming all these waves, the carry will get to farm all these waves, but because my wave is always walking into his tower, he can't really help out. So we'll like 2v1 the support, and we'll just drag waves and farm. However, if they have like a really strong support, and maybe they have a carry like even Gyrocopter, and they can fight you really early into the game, and they chase you around, maybe you shouldn't like start cutting. If you like die once or twice, it's really bad. So it's important to play it safe until you reach the point when you feel like you're strong enough. In this lane, we don't start cutting level 1 or 2, because I'm a little bit worried that this Gyrocopter and this Disruptor are going to be too strong. He's going to spam his Rocket Barrage, there's none of my creep wave I can hide behind. My Phoenix is only level 1, he used it level 2, so he didn't even have his dive. Like I would say our power spike in this lane is at least like level 3. Then we get like the upgraded Fire Spirits. The Disruptor is not that strong anymore. This spell, like while still strong, it doesn't deal comparatively as much damage to our spells. To understand why we want to cut as well is because it's very important in this game for me to get farm. If you look at our heroes, Lone Raid and Spectre, very greedy heroes. Nobody in my team is going to make space for me. So it's really, really important that I get a good early game so I can like use my timings to fight. Otherwise I'm just going to be stuck like trying to farm my blink anyway, and it's just going to be like a much slower and sadder process. So by cutting, you give the carry complete free farm, but you also give yourself complete free farm. So you need to understand like, is the farm really important on me? And is it important that their carry doesn't get farmed? Of course you never want their carry to get farmed, but in this game it's a lot more important that I get farmed. I don't really care what the carry is going to do with his farm. You know, he's going to farm and he's going to go into the jungle and he's going to keep farming. I'm going to farm, I'm going to get my blink, and I'm going to run around and kill him in the jungle. So like the farm on me has a lot faster and more impact than the farm on him has. Another thing to think about as well, if you're cutting, is like their supports. Right now they have a Wyvern position 4, very weak, very hard for him to gank you. There's not even any creeps that he can like Splinter Blast off. He basically only has a fly. Maybe they have like a Clockwork position 4 that has boots level 1 that's going to skill his battery assault, and then he can run you down and kill you all the time. In those scenarios, it's a lot more scary to be cutting. Maybe you can cut one wave here or there, but every time the Clockwork goes missing, you kind of have to fall back and play defensive. So you shouldn't really have the mindset of like, I'm going to cut no matter what, and then you just end up getting ganked a bunch of times. Especially when you have like a Spectre on your safe lane, it's really easy for them to like leave their offlaner alone and kind of tri-lane you. When you're in a position like this, you're putting yourself at high risk, you're really vulnerable to ganks. Rotations from the mid hero as well. Make sure you look out for like haste runes. Make sure you tell your mid laner to tell you if it's missing, because the distance to run from here to here and get a kill is like a lot safer and faster than the distance to run all the way here to here and get a kill. Also TPs, because it's so close to the tower, versus if the lane is up here, somebody TPs in, maybe we see it right away, but like we can't really react because we're playing literally next to the tower. The last thing I would want to say about cutting as well is you can farm all the creep camps in the jungle. Because you're cutting over here, you can drag it like into the small camp. This is an older replay, so there's an ancient camp here. Nowadays it's a hard camp, so you can drag the camp into here as well and farm, but only after 5 minutes. before 5 minutes, the small camp is the only camp you can farm. You can see that in this replay, I do like things like this. This doesn't work anymore. If you want to cut waves, you have to do it from over here. And it's a little bit easier on Radiant, in my opinion. You can do it from here. But on Radiant, you can farm this small camp and this hard camp. And on Dire, you can farm this hard camp and this small camp. The best thing to, in my opinion, when cutting, is to do it if you have a weaker lane, especially if you're playing Darkseer. Usually you're laning against like a Nyx, maybe you're laning against like a Nyx and a Witch Doctor, you're just gonna die if you walk up. If you can successfully cut and drag every wave, you're fighting their support 2v1, you give the carry free farm, but you also get free farm. And that's like what's more important for your hero, and probably in a lot of these scenarios, you're not gonna stop them from farming anyway. So it's better to cut waves, and once you're getting a little bit of a level advantage, maybe you kill their support together with your support because you're playing 2v1. At that point you can tell your support to go roam, and you'll just play solo, and you are farming, but the carry is farming. And hopefully you're farming even more creep camps than him, because it's after 5 minutes, so you're even pull ahead in net worth, even though they have a lot of a stronger matchup. In this game I'm playing position 4 clock, and I have a Darkseer in the offlane. Now I think this guy is DM from Virtus Pro Prodigy, so he's like a very good player. I think he's probably one of the better CIS like offlaners, and he plays a lot of Darkseer. So we communicate together. I ask him like, do you want to cut waves? He says yes, but first push in the first wave. So what happens is the first wave, it's gonna, if you go here, it's just gonna ignore you and walk past you. Until these two waves have met, none of the creeps can aggro on an enemy hero. So you want to push in the first wave. It lets you do two things. First of all, you get all the golden experience from the creeps, obviously, but it also forces the carry to deal with your creep wave, so he can't just run over and start hitting you. If all these creeps were dead, I promise you, instead of running back to his tower, the next would be running after us and hitting us all the time, which makes this a lot harder. Around like 50, 51, you want to pull this wave towards you. Now, this is a mistake from my end. I didn't really expect this. A good thing to do, by the way, is to cut these trees. You can cut this tree and even drag from here if you're a little bit late. Once I aggro the creep wave, the Iron Shell deals damage to the creeps, and they aggro instead to Darkseer. So this first, I guess, cut attempt or pull attempt failed really hard, but he instead had to like compensate, and he says it's fine, we'll just push in again and we'll try again. So even though like you failed cutting once or twice, as long as you're not dying, you know, this Nyx gets you free from this wave out. Maybe my Darkseer misses like, a couple of creep kills. It's more important that you try and play in a way to make it happen instead of trying to like get a little bit more last hits here and there. In some cases, you need a little bit more levels on farm before you can start cutting. In this scenario, until my Darkseer is, I would say, level 3, we can't really cut all the time. So I start pulling waves. The Rubik is chasing me, and a very common thing that happens to your position 4 when he pulls waves is that the support will hit this hard camp, and he will try aggro to the archer. And this happens, I would say, like at least 50% of the games I ask my support to pull waves, even at high MMRs. So you want to make sure as an offlane player that you're able to poke. Maybe you get this archer, maybe you can help out against his support. Now he had a wave in his tower because of what happened earlier, but a lot of the cases you want to run over and help your support either pull the wave, cut the wave, get last hits on this hard camp. A lot of the times the carry will pull the creeps into the hard camp here, and then it's important that you're there ready to farm it out and contest instead of just following your support around, because then obviously you would lose some creeps and he would farm out a free hard camp. Now in this case, he pulls the wave around because he wants to connect these two waves and keep like farming like normally. And in this scenario, it's important that you as an offlaner understand that if the support is running to chase your support, who is pulling waves, you need to fight the carry, and you need to like try and farm equal here. But if the support is staying here and zoning you, you understand that your support is free farming and is going to deny an entire wave. Now in this case, I'm a smart boy, so I know that the Rubik is chasing me. I'm not going to be able to free farm this. I let 2 of these creeps go through. I only pull half my wave, which forces Nyx in a really awkward position. He sees this and he's like, okay, I don't want to connect the 2 waves over here because these 2 creeps are going to run into my tower and I will lose them. So it's a lot about like when cutting that you work together with your support, that you communicate, you watch what each other is doing, and you pay attention to each other. Fast forwarding a little bit, at this point my Darkseer is about to hit level 3 here, and now we're strong enough to fight the Rubik 2v1 and to kill waves with an upgraded Iron Shell. And how you want to do this is that you basically just aggro every wave. You can see right here even, I'll show it again, the like aggro point of the creeps. He's standing here, this is like the line. Right by this tree, you can see the creeps at first completely ignoring him, and now once they've hit like the timing right there, they avert and they start chasing him instead. So before this point you can't aggro at all, but once they reach this point, you can drag them. Now, he wants to farm them, but the carry is kind of close by and farming in the tower. So the first thing you do is you want to pull it as far away from the carry as possible, making it like his time and effort to run over is a lot longer over here than if we would be killing the creeps over here. It's really easy for him to screw with us. Maybe he will even kill us. At worst, he'll use a couple of creeps. But it's a lot better to farm over here. And once the next wave connects, he's forced to go back to the tower and farm it out. Then you can start farming a little bit more aggressively and to start farming creep camps. Now, I have a stacked hard camp as my support. So a good thing to do when pulling and cutting as well is to pull this hard camp. If you can farm it out and if you're stronger than the enemy. Now, we're not necessarily stronger than the enemy, but because I saw that the Nyx was so deep into the tower with so many creeps, it's going to take him a long time to move over, so we'd figure we'll deny some creeps on the wave. These are like finer details that will like improve your lane phase a little bit, but the most important thing that you do every wave is to kill the wave that comes here. Because I pull this wave, not that important, because it's going to go into tower for me anyway, and I'll just farm it freely. But in a scenario when maybe you get zoned by the Rubik, like here, let's say he zones my Darkseer, and I don't pull this wave, and we don't get to cut this wave, then the wave is then back to normal, and if we want to keep cutting, it's very hard to push it in over here, and we'll basically lose an entire wave of farm. So the most important thing you can do is to make sure that you kill every creep wave that comes, every time. Otherwise the carry will have time to run over, and he will like have time to pressure you instead. Once this is done, my Darkseer says you need to help me more against the Rubik because he's taking a lot of damage and it doesn't feel like buying a lot of regen all the time. So I'm like, okay, I'll run over and help you more. I'll say I'll play against the Rubik, I'll pull this wave. I even tell him I'll pull it to you. He farms it like really far away from the Darkseer, from the Nyx I mean. And once the Rubik rotates out, then I understand, okay, I can leave this lane now because my offlaner is alone. So if an offlaner you want to be like, you want to be fighting 2v1 against your support, and eventually he's going to leave if you're cutting successfully because he's not getting anything out of it. He can't really fight back 1v2. At that point, you tell your support, go do something else, go stack, go gank, because I can 1v1 this Nyx. The reason you can 1v1, like I said, is you kill every wave, and your wave is going to walk into his tower all the time. So if he was chasing you over here, he would lose a creep every wave, and a creep wave every minute, I mean. And that's not the way you play the game. Another thing to think about as well, when you're cutting, very good to buy bottle on Bristle and Darkseer especially. Bounty runes spawn at 5 minutes, and maybe you die once or twice, maybe your support dies, you can also refill the bottle every time. It's like a high value item to have. You need a lot of regen and mana when you cut, so it's like just a good item to think about buying. Another good thing is to have wards for yourself. Now we've had this ward for a very long period of time, and we're not feeling too scared because of their heroes. Like Viper is not the best at rotating. But I would say once Kunkka hits level 6, it's a good idea to like get a ward out somewhere here for yourself so that you can see his rotations and pay a lot of attention to what the mid laner is doing. And the last thing as well is when you want to stop cutting, I would say it's like around a certain point when you think you're going to die or when they start rotating on you. And cutting aggressively as well can be a very good thing because if you're cutting over here, you can farm more camps, and it also takes a way longer time for the carry to run over. So even if he decides I'm going to leave a wave because I may be connecting with my Kunkka, I'm going to gank him, it takes him a lot longer time, and maybe it gives you more time to realize that it's happening. So to understand if it's a good lane to cut in or not, first of all you need to understand like, can I even cut? Like, is it realistic? Let's say they had a Earth Spirit and a Rubik playing against us, you know, we're going to be 2v2ing them. They're probably just going to kill us together with their creep wave. They're a lot stronger. It's like not reliable. But because the Earth Spirit is laning bottom, we can just cut pretty much without a problem. And then the second reason, which I think is the decider if you're going to do it or not, is how strong is your lane into their carry. Nyx, I would say, is one of the better heroes against Darkseer. He can just lifesteal off the creeps all the time. He hits pretty fast and pretty hard. He can rage to become magic immune, so you can't really kill him, which means that he's going to be running at my Darkseer, and my Darkseer is going to farm less than the Nyx if we were to lane normally. Now in this scenario, because we've been cutting, their net worth is pretty much even, but you can also see that my net worth is a lot above Rubik. So I've like taken some of the farm, and in total, I think we're ahead in this lane. So normally it's a lane where the matchup is favorable for the enemy team, but because we've been cutting and like not laning straight up, we've been kind of dodging the Nyx. We're actually ahead in net worth by at least 200-300 gold in total. And another thing to think about as well is like how your hero kind of operates. On some heroes like Centaur, for example, most of the time maybe you can cut with Retaliate, and maybe you want to do it if you're laning against like a Monkey King or Ursa because their lane is so much stronger than you. But most of the time you want to aim to win the lane, because that's like kind of what your hero is designed to do, and you want to try and snowball. The most important thing when you play Darkseer is just that you get your own levels and farm, and you don't really care too much about their carry, because once you get a quick like level 7, 8, then you can start running around making plays and pressuring the map. Sometimes if you have a very greedy lineup like in this one, we have Orc Warden, Phoenix and Chaos Knight, that means that these heroes are all going to be farming for a very long period of time. That means that it's like on the burden on me and the Darkseer to make plays and make moves. So it's really, really important that he gets his levels and farms, and not that like he's kind of underfarmed and underleveled, and then the Nyx is kind of underfarmed and underleveled, but then the playmakers in their team, which is like Kunkka and Earth Spirit, are running around and doing stuff, and we can't respond, and obviously the Orc Warden can't respond because he's greedy, and the Chaos Knight can't respond because he's our carry. So you need to like understand what your role is, and that if you're gonna cut, if you need a lot of farm, sometimes it's better to just give the carry a lot of farm anyway.